Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This week, what I really wanted to talk about is trauma identity a little bit more. And there is a lot of us who don't realize and recognize that we are operating from different trauma identities and from this space of trauma reactions and responses. Now, I always say reaction rather than response, because a response is like something you do the first time, right? A response is, in a sense, premeditated. You've thought about a response. It's intentional. And oftentimes our trauma responses are really trauma reactions. We're just reacting, going back to a time when something happened and acting in the same way, whether or not the thing that we're reacting to is the same thing. And so oftentimes we can get caught up in having these reactions to things that happened in the past and not really see what's happening right now. So I'll be using the term trauma reaction in this episode. Now, if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm Toni, I'm the trauma doula, and I talk all things energy healing, trauma work, inner child. And if you are not new here and you have not subscribed to my Substack, the Substack Newsletter is going to be a place where I'm putting a lot of extra focus and attention to have some of those podcast extras. And I'm also going to be doing somatics for everybody. So I'm going to be putting out just some monthly somatic movement and somatic yoga exercises and things like that on my Substack. And that is literally going to be for everybody. So hopefully you will find that useful. And the sign up link is in the description box below. So thanks so much for everyone who's already subscribed and already been supporting. I really appreciate you. And everyone who is new here, it is completely free to sign up for it. And you get lots of cool stuff. There's already some articles and things on there about trauma and all that. So without further ado, let's get started. So who are you being? That's the question we are often faced with as survivors of trauma, especially childhood trauma. Oftentimes we are being a reaction that helped us survive in the past and maybe have continued to help us survive in certain instances. And yet you will come to a place in a time when those reactions from the survivor are no longer helping you. And in fact, they're holding you back. They're making it difficult for you to cope, difficult for you to form healthy relationships and friendships, difficult for you to draw boundaries with people that you know you need to draw boundaries with, and it'll make it difficult for you to do things for yourself that you know are in your best interest. These reactions often come about as personas, and that's why I ask, who are you being today? Who were you being yesterday? And is there continuity in who you're being? There are many identities and masks that we put on as survivors. And I'm just going to talk about a couple of them today. So one of the first identities I want to talk about as a trauma reaction is the fixer. So what happens when you are embodying the persona as the fixer is you start to try to fix things. You recognize something's broken, or you think something's broken, and you try to fix it. That can be your parents, your friends, other people's problems. Specifically, the fixer loves to fix other people's problems, okay? And the fixer never stops long enough to recognize that the problems that they're trying to fix for others are often the problems that they're having within themselves, okay? I'm gonna say that again. The fixer never stops long enough to realize and recognize that they are fixing other people's problems that directly reflect a problem that they have in their own life. So oftentimes the fixer will have friends and relationships that directly reflect their family of origin specifically. So let's say that you always needed to be the parent to your parent. And that one is a really common one for a lot of childhood trauma survivors. So let's say you were the parent to your parent. The fixer is trying to figure out how they can fix their parent because something's wrong. They're not being a parent. And now the fixer is parenting the parent. Maybe the fixer is getting the parent up for work because they're hungover and they often miss work. Maybe the fixer is getting their siblings up for school because they know the parents aren't getting the siblings up for school and making sure everyone gets to school. Maybe the fixer is making dinner at night because if they don't, it's, a cream of mushroom soup out that can. And this goes far beyond being parentified because when the fixer grows up, they're going to seek out friendships and even relationships that reflect directly the relationships that they had in their childhood. And oftentimes this can happen too, they try to get the exact opposite. But more often than not, they go towards friends who need to be parented, need to be taken care of, need to be told what to do and how to do it. And, you've got this. They seek out that energy because they're still trying to work something out. They haven't quite figured out that they need to be reparented. That maybe they didn't need to take on all that responsibility for other people, aka your parents, significant others. You hear this a lot with significant others because there's this element of building a family with a significant other. So a fixer may find a significant other who's a project, okay? And they spend their time working on their project without recognizing that they're running around trying to fix other people. And then they look around at their life and they realize the only thing they have is people who need them to do things for them. Every time they've tried to do something for themselves, somehow those people, those relationships that they're fixing, that they've made their projects, always seem to ruin any forward momentum the fixer has. But this isn't the only persona that you may pick up. So the next persona that you may be embodying as a survivor is the doer. The doer, the always doing because it's never, ever, ever done. Nothing's ever done. There's always another thing. There's always another job. There's always another project. There's always another. So the doer and the fixer can oftentimes be intertwined, but not always, okay? The doer, they can tend to be a workaholic. Sometimes people will say about a doer, like, that is the hardest working person I know. They work so hard. And the doer ends up being burnt out at some point. The doer is the person who cannot sit. They cannot sit because if they sit down, these thoughts, these feelings, this energy rises up, comes forward, and smacks them in the face. Okay. The doer cannot sit with themselves because they're running. Okay, the doer can kind of be a runner as well. They may even be an avoidant in relationships. The doer might even seem like they have it all together. They have things all figured out. And what you'll notice as someone, if you are kind of working on your healing journey and you're healing from your childhood trauma, you may actually notice that you don't want to do anything. There comes a certain point where you are exhausted. Your body's exhausted. And I find this for doers, there comes a certain point where they just hit a wall. They are burnt out and they don't even know why they were doing half the things that they were doing. And they start to get sick. Many doers have chronic illnesses because of the repressed emotion. Like, there is a lot of research right now coming out about how women have more chronic illnesses from repressing feelings and emotions. And being a doer is a one of the best ways to suppress your feelings, because if you're working 70 hours a week, guess what? You can't feel anything. You're numb. So that tends to be where the doer gravitates toward. They gravitate towards relationships that are more caretaking, and also where they can be kind of avoidant, kind of like, you're over here, I'm over here, you know, I'll do things for you, but like, don't get too close to me, you know? So those are some of the main things with a doer. And then last but not least, and also while I have 3 personas you can embody, there are so many more. So if you don't hear yourselves in these, that's okay. There's others. Okay, there's so many. And if you want to hear more about that, let me know, and I'll do another episode about different personas we embody as trauma survivors. But anyhow, the final one for today is the nice guy, girl person. Okay. And you hear a nice guy, they're a nice guy. You're going to hear that a little bit more, but just because the way of society and things like that, you hear people talk about the nice guy, give the nice guy a chance, things like that. But the nice guy girl is really just a people pleaser. And I recognize people pleasing is a trauma reaction, and that trauma reaction is the fawn response. And the fawn response in trauma is to go in and fake it. Fake like you're okay. Fake like you're fine with this. Fake like you like doing this. Fake it, fake it, fake it, because that was the best way to protect yourself when you were surviving. People pleasing gets a bad rap, and there's like this whole thing with victim blaming that comes up with people pleasing as a persona, and the nice guy, nice girl as a persona that we embody as trauma survivors, where people have started to call it manipulation and things like that. I don't buy into any of that. Every trauma reaction is natural, normal, and perfectly designed to help you survive what you went through as a survivor. It is perfectly designed for your survival. That's why you did it, okay? So I kind of, there's a zeitgeist that starts to happen where people find new and interesting ways to victim blame. And really be careful of that as a survivor. If you start to feel like someone is blaming you for what happened, that's probably a clear sign that there's some victim blaming and that mentality going on where we're amplifying and upholding the abuser as, well, it's not really their fault, and they went through this and they went through that. There's always something with that. But I digress. Nice guy, nice girl, nice person. This person in embodiment, it's really about people pleasing. It's fawning. It's recognizing that you were not safe to be you. You were not safe to say no. And so you said, yeah, oh, of course, right? Even when you didn't feel it inside. And so I think this one is kind of the saddest because no one saw you. And if they did, they didn't care. They didn't want to see you. They wanted you to do what they wanted you to do. Oftentimes, the nice person never actually knows what they want, because they just want to make other people happy, or they just want to make sure other people aren't mad at them. And there's often this like, are you mad at me? Are you mad at me? How can I make it better? And the nice person can be really, really, really open to abuse and manipulation later on in life, especially if it was childhood trauma that groomed them to be the nice person, the yes person. And not yes because like you're like, yeah, I'm ready and open for adventure and I'm open and curious to new things. But yes, because if I say no, or maybe even yes, because I don't even know that I want to say no. Yes, because I don't know myself well enough to recognize that maybe I don't want that and that doesn't work for me. The nice person has a hard and long way to go to learn about themselves and who they are as a human being. You might find yourself really lost at some point in your life. The nice person often has this point where they say, I can't say I can't say or do another thing I don't want to do. It is making me sick. And this is another person that chronic illness gets really sick because you're running around and your soul is crying to be seen, to be heard, to be listened to day in and day out as you follow along the whims of other people. And again, it's not a judgment. You were groomed to be as such. It is a natural and normal reaction to want to feel safe and to do anything to feel some semblance of safety. And so I say all of that to say that none of these embodiments mean anything like bad about you. It is just what needed to happen for your survival. And I always say, are you wanting to stay living in survival? Or are you ready to shift and learn about these generational cycles that have been put upon you and grow into a thriver, right? Because a survivor is still surviving, no matter where they are, no matter if things are completely different. But a thriver has shifted themselves, that energy, and moved to a different place of being so that they can finally truly grow and be themselves. And so the question isn't, why? Why am I like this? Or why did this happen? The question is, how can I grow now? What do I need to do to shift? How can I heal the parts of me that are still surviving? How can I become a thriver? How can I move forward? How can I grow so that I won't be afraid of the things that I want for myself? Because ultimately what trauma takes from you is yourself. Anyhow, I think that's all I got for this episode. So again, sign up for my newsletter, the Substack, down below in the description box, and I will see you next time.